Okay, so let's move on then to talking about the MTB itself and the structure of the tests. So one distinguishing feature of the MTB tests, which sets them apart from almost all other providers of music exams, is that their exams have always been conducted by the teacher, recorded by the teacher, and then sent off to an examiner for assessment. So in other words, you do not, if you're a pupil, you do not have to travel to be in the same location as the examiner. It helps if you're in the same location as your teacher, but actually even that is not necessary. There is a way of doing it over a Zoom call even. So theoretically, you can have the candidate in one place, the teacher in another place, and the examiner in another place, and it all works. And I can vouch, as somebody who's used these exams quite a lot, especially over the last 2 years, that does indeed work very well. And of course, that's quite relevant to an instrument like the mandolin, where a lot of people are doing their lessons remotely. Mandolin teachers are fairly few and far between. So I think that's quite a strength of the tests from our point of view. Most of the things that I would want to say about how the exams works are in fact in this first menu here, so I can keep this bit fairly short. So mostly it's an audio recording. It can be done on any device, but the easiest way to do it is in fact to use the MTB app. This is something that a teacher can have on their phone. It's very neat. You simply start it at the beginning of the exam, and it takes you through all the steps of the exam, gives you instructions, reminds you of little things that you might forget, does the recording for you, and eventually you simply click a button, submit at the bottom, and it's sent off, and there's no further paperwork for the teacher to do. It all goes onto the MTB system and is sent straight off to an examiner. I will just quickly show you the page with the MTB app. All the information is on the site. This is a very nice transparent site, and you can see that app is available in the usual places. So usually it's the teacher who would need that app, but occasionally somebody might need to record themselves, or occasionally it might be a family member recording for them. Once the exam is submitted, it's then assessed remotely by trained examiners. All MTB examiners, by the way, are instrument specialists. So, if you're doing a guitar exam, you'll be examined by a guitarist. I mention that because that actually not every exam board works like that. For example, the Associated Board in the UK trains their examiners to examine in every instrument. There are different ways of doing this, but the MTB has instrument specialists. One other little boring bit I'd like to say, but this is quite important, and that is that MTB grade tests are recognized by Ofqual. If you're not sure what that is, if you're from overseas, that's a national body. It regulates exams and syllabuses in the UK and decides what is equivalent to what and puts everything into a larger framework. So in practical terms, that means if you're a young person applying for university, or maybe you're an adult doing continuing professional development, you can get credit points for any MTB exams that you've passed. Now, obviously, depending on your own circumstances, that might or might not be important for you, but it should give a general confidence in MTB that they've got that kind of accreditation. They've submitted themselves to an external review. They're not just an organization doling out bits of paper. They've been recognized, and their exams do have the same weight as the big players in the music exam market, such as Associated Board and Trinity. Okay, so now let's move on to the exams themselves. I'm going to go across here to the exams menu, and I'm going to go straight down here to syllabuses. And here you can see all of the different instruments that MTB offer exams in. You can see all the ones that you would expect, maybe a couple that you might not expect. And ta-da, the new kid on the block is mandolin. Let's click there. That's the mandolin page. And we can get details of all the syllabuses here. By the way, I'm just going to mention this loud and clear because this has foxed a couple of people. You have to click on the plus button, and then it expands and you get all the information. So what I'm going to do is just talk about one of the grades and just take you through what you would have to do if you did that particular grade. anything I say would apply to any of the grades because they all have the same format. The only thing is that there are 2 pre-grade levels where it's slightly shorter and simpler test. So I'm going to choose grade 4 just at random here. And when I click on that, what you'll see is the entire syllabus now. This is in fact at the top of a long PDF document, and you'll see the whole syllabus on here. And I'm going to just walk you quickly through it. First of all, the exam's out of 100 marks, and you can see here that the recital section is worth 60 of those marks. You play 3 pieces, each one's worth 20 marks. I'm not going to say too much about these pieces just now because Francis is going to take us through that in a little while. But that's the first thing that you see is a list of pieces that you could choose. And by the way, you as I said, you play 3 of these and it is a completely free choice. Then we come down, if I keep scrolling down, this is a sort of navigation page here. You can either click on these links or you can just keep scrolling down. You will get there either way. So having done your recital section, you then go on to the technical section, which as you can see is worth 25 marks in all. And you can see that there's a left-hand path and a right-hand path that you can follow here. Everybody has to do the technical exercises. I will just click on, so just to get us quickly to the technical exercises for grade 4. There we are. I think there are 3, sometimes there are 4, but that's just that takes you straight there. So notice how quick and easy it is, by the way, to see everything in this syllabus. You don't have to buy anything in order to see these exercises. You don't have to download some massive document. You can just click and it's right there. Okay, so those are the technical exercises for that level, and Barbara's contribution will talk more about those later. And then the other part of the technical section of the test is scales. And you can either do these from memory, which is the traditional way, or there's something here that you'll see called alternative to scales from memory. I will just quickly show you each of those. So if I go to scales from memory, these, remember, are grade 4 scales. So there's a fairly large and varied selection there because grade 4 is already getting reasonably advanced. And these would be performed from memory. I just scroll down. And you'll see at the bottom there, by the way, there's a series of plucking patterns. So the idea is that the teacher who's conducting the exam can request for you to play the scales using any of those patterns. Yeah, so that there's a little variety. You're not simply playing, it's not all single struck notes all the time. Then, however, there are people who find a scale page like the one I've just scrolled through really quite intimidating. Some of us are very good at remembering scale patterns and flipping from one key to another. Some of us are not so good. There is an alternative to it, and if I keep scrolling down, I will get hopefully to that page next, alternative to scales from memory. And what you will see here, if you check these against the scale sheet above, is that you end up playing exactly the same scales in arpeggios, but they've been turned into little mini studies. So rather than simply playing each note once up and down, you can see that in some cases you have to play a rhythm pattern. By the way, this particular grade features semiquavers quite a lot, so there are plenty of semiquaver rhythms here. You'll also see little articulation markings or dynamic markings as you go through these exercises. So you can do this with the sheet in front of you. That's the idea. You're not playing from memory, but the quid pro quo is that you're being asked to do a little more in terms of demonstrating general technique as well as just knowledge of the scales. So that's the technical section done. And moving quickly on, I'm now going to talk about the musicianship section, and then I'm done. So I'm going to go back up to the navigation page here. Again, there is a left-hand path and a right-hand path. Everybody has to do this thing called reading skills, and then you can choose to either do listening skills or duet. Very briefly, the reading skills look like that. These are exercises which you clap against a metronome beat, and you have to do the whole set of them. There is a link at the top of the page here where you can find a recording of the metronome being played and examiner's instructions. And the metronome, you'll notice, is not always at the same speed. This is surprisingly difficult. You might look at this at first and think, oh, that looks pretty easy. You'd be surprised how tricky people find this to clap the correct rhythms and to stay in time with the metronome. So that's generally to test the music reading skills. Then, as I say, you can do listening skills. I think they're just above, they're just below, if I remember. And again, there's a little battery of tests here. You sing back the top note of a chord. You sing an interval above the chord at this particular grade, and you sing back melodic phrases. You can do that, or you can do the duet, which again, I have to scroll a little bit for. This is the beginning of the grade 4 duet. And again, there are recordings here that you can access very easily on these links. So there's the pupil part and the teacher part here. By the way, if you do listen to the recordings, you might at first be surprised to hear the sound of a violin playing the accompaniment rather than a mandolin. We did decide very early on in this project to adopt the violin duets for mandolin. In fact, several other instruments share the same duets, and we felt there was no point in reinventing the wheel. The duets work just as well on the mandolin as they did on the violin, and what this test is really about is not the instrument so much as your ability to play ensemble. Okay, that is, as they say, the end of your test. And I'm going to unshare just for a moment. I'd now like to pass on to Frances, who will hopefully say a few words about the recital pieces.
Hello, everyone. It's lovely to see you here this afternoon. And welcome to all the people that might watch this on the playback at a future date. I just want to take a brief walk through these pieces. We can't talk about everything in detail, but I'd love you to see the variety of pieces. We've got jazz pieces, we've got Southern American pieces, Brazilian type pieces, we've got folk pieces, and we've got the usual mix of classical pieces from the Western art tradition that you're perhaps familiar with. So we're looking at the pre-introductory grades at the moment. Now, this is perhaps a new thing for some people. Many years ago, there just were 8 grades in the other boards that people are perhaps familiar with for other instruments or for the mandolin. But in recent years, some preliminary grades have been introduced. And so this is something that you don't have to do, but is perhaps a good idea for some people. It just depends. If you're teaching very small children, sometimes this is very helpful. Sometimes it's just a confidence boost, even if you're an adult. So it's worth having a look at these. Now, I just want to walk us through the variety and the choice. We've just spoken about the choice, about all the different types of genre that are reflected in the syllabus. Another thought that was given to the repertoire was to be very careful to use as many pieces as we could from the same book, so that you'll see the same publications used time and time again throughout the grades. They tend to work in clusters. So, for example, at this level, you'll see that there is a book here at the very beginning, the very first one, if you'd just like to point at that for me. That would be lovely. You've got graded music for mandolin, and you've got that below graded music again. So theoretically, you could choose both of those 2 pieces and just have one book, and you'll find that it's repeated again in the next grade. We'll look at that in a moment, and or the next level, as it were, because these are pre-grade introductory pieces, and the next one is a pre-grade higher, so they're pre-grade examinations. So this is astute music. If we go on to the next one, which is the pre-grade higher, you'll find here, okay, so you'll find here, so the second one down, you'll find again, graded music for mandolin, same publication. And you'll find also, even at this very early level, when there's not quite so much choice, there's very simple tunes that are folk tunes and that kind of thing, very simple little, there's a minuet here by Piccone, a nice little 18th century piece. But you will see there are even some jazz pieces here. So at the bottom you see micro jazz, bottom two pieces, micro jazz for mandolin, and that comes up again and again. So if we move on to grade 1.
Just a second.
That's all right.
There we are. There we are, grade 1.
Okay, so second down you see grade 3 times, the same book used 3 times and different pieces. Obviously, it would be very sensible when you're choosing, because you've got ultimate choice, it would be really sensible if you chose different types of pieces. By that I mean different styles, maybe from different traditions, or maybe just different speeds, different feel, different character in the pieces of music. Not necessarily different periods of time. You don't have to stick strictly to that, but it would be not sensible to do 3 slow pieces all from the Baroque period, for example. It's nice to have a little contrast to your program. So that's a thought when you're going through here. So if we go on to grade 2.
There we are. Can you see grade 2?
Yeah, yes. So grade 2, I can see you have yours truly, Hugh Boyd. You have a few pieces by him at the beginning. And if we go on to the next page, if we scroll down, we can see that we've got some pieces by Pietro Fucchetti, sometimes pronounced wrongly as Fuccetti, but it's Fucchetti because it's Italian, and these are the only ones I can pronounce correctly. But anyway, we've got serenades and sonatas from that. But again, this comes up, this little book is used time and time again. Now, I just want to show you one very important thing. You see that in blue on the very right-hand side of your screen, you have the publisher. Now, if you click on any of these links, and we're going to click on Treacle at the top, yes, it will take you to the publisher. Now, this is very important because this is, takes a lot of hassle out of trying to find the music. But I just wanted to choose this one to start with because many of you will have used Treacle in the past, and they did change their site to reflect their very big English-speaking market, and they did have everything very clearly in English. And now, for some reason, they've gone back to it being presented in German. I just want to reassure you that if you have difficulties in navigating around this site, then the best thing to do is to email them, because they're very friendly, very helpful, very professional, and they will send you whatever you need. The other German sites, we can go now on to, go back to the grade 2, if you like.
There you are, grade 2.
In a moment, we're moving on, but the other sites, I just want to tell you that the other German sites are very straightforward to navigate because they usually go to a home page which is in English anyway. So I just want to take the fear out of looking at sites which may be a little unfamiliar to you. If we go on to grade 3, these are the intermediate grades, 3, 4, and 5.
There's 3.
Okay, so for example, let's go down to the Domenico Scarlatti. This is interesting. So if we go there and we just click on Vogt and Fritz, which I hope I pronounced correctly. Can we just click on that?
Sorry,
click on the
just
publisher.
chasing him. Yes, here we are. Yeah.
I think on the first page. Yes, just click on that. Okay, yes. So right. So now what I suggest you do is I suggest you put in Domenico Scarlatti. Now you can either put in the the last name of the composer. Sometimes it's better to put the first name as well. So just put Domenico Scarlatti in and see what comes up.
You can also use the catalogue number often.
You can indeed. I'm just giving you different ways of looking for things. I find sometimes people have a great deal of difficulty in finding. Now, this is, the screen I've got is quite small, so I'm just trying to get my eyes into this, but you might have to look under mandolin music, and you've got 10 articles, 10 pieces here. So if you go down, and there is a way of changing this to English if this is not clear, but if you just go down the list where you are, that's fine.
Just a second, yeah.
Scroll down. And we're looking for K81.
There we are.
I think you're going to find it. There we are. There you are. So you don't have to do many clicks or many scrolls to find what you're looking for. So we'll go back now to the main list. We'll go back to grade 3. I just think it's quite
all
important.
This screen sharing. So.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So that's lovely. So that just gives you confidence to explore and to know that a great deal of thought has gone into how you actually get hold of all these bits of music. Here we're beginning to get at this stage other types of music. We're getting Colace, for instance, and we're getting Graham, we're getting Christopher Norton, that was the slip of the brain, wasn't it there? Eileen Pakenham, we're getting lots of different types of music here. Lecce, I notice, Sowley, and it's quite helpful with the books that have been chosen. The Mazar, looks like Mazars, but it's Mazar, the French violinist. There are pieces in The Art of the Mandolin by Silvio Ranieri. We chose quite a lot of pieces from the Ranieri book. So again, you can see here, you've got Nigel Gather at the top, Joy Set. You can really see there's a broad spectrum. You've got the jazz, you've got contemporary composers, you've got folk music, and you've got the romantic music coming in. So, you know, we love the Baroque music. I'm a great passionate ambassador for the Baroque music, but there's everything else there as well. So whatever it is that you really love, you will find in this collection of pieces. Going on to grade 4. Okay, so here we're going back, we're clicking on, and we've got the grade 4 up. And here we can see at the top, we've got Simon Mayer, we've got a lovely little piece that he wrote. So going down, you'll see some bluegrass, for example. Again, you'll see at the bottom, Donkler, again from the Ranieri. So it's all, and then you get a second page. You see now with these more advanced grades, these intermediate grades, you're seeing we've got a second page. So we've got quite a lot of different things being offered. Scarlatti, we've even got the Hasse Mandolin Concerto, a little bit from that, and Beethoven at the bottom, and again, Eileen Pakenham. What I think is important now to think about is that very often you can find pieces that are solo pieces, and so you won't have the accompaniment problem. But many of these pieces actually have a variety of offerings of accompaniments, and I think that's quite important to think about. You might have another mandolin, you might have guitar, or you might have keyboard, which would normally be piano, because not many of us have the privilege of having access to a harpsichord or something else. There are many possibilities here, but it just depends on your teacher and the people you know and what's available to you. So in some cases, as you get further up the list of pieces and the pieces get more difficult, you may find that something offers you a guitar accompaniment, but you have another edition that offers you the original keyboard accompaniment, and you might be able to offer that instead. If you're in any doubt, I'm sure if you contact either Hugh or the board, you can clarify that you can use a different accompaniment, especially if it was the original accompaniment. So I think, again, because of the flexibility that's shown in the way the technical exercises are laid out, in the way that we choose the repertoire, in another aspect I'm just about to mention, you will find that it's possible to choose different accompaniments, which when they're available, which lightens the load a little bit. It sometimes makes your experience a little easier, a little more comfortable. So the other thing I was just about to mention is that there is the possibility of actually having a free choice, choosing a piece that matches the technical requirements of the grade that you're going for. But the details are available. We have written a document about that, but it's not actually on the website at the moment. But it's probably best to really check with the board or with you and then the board to see whether that piece is acceptable before you go ahead and sit the exam. This was the example that I wanted to give. So at grade 5, you have Scarlatti with the guitar accompaniment. But of course, that was written originally with just one single bass line. And the bass line would be realised by a lute type instrument such as a theorbo, or more commonly by the harpsichord. And very often we use the piano or some other kind of electronic keyboard in its place for examinations. So if you've got a different edition for that, that would be something that you could just check with the board first, or with Hugh, being an intermediary for you with the board, to check that that was actually okay. And so, everything is possible. It just needs checking before you go ahead and try things.
Yes, 6 is there.
So here again, we've got this wonderful variety, all the usual things that you would expect to find here. Some very nice pieces by Calace. Now, I want to talk about Calace. Maybe this isn't the grade to demonstrate this to you, but at this level, all the Calace pieces, we've given you an edition that you can get hold of quite easily. Later on, you may have more difficulty, and it's very easily available from the Italian Mandolin Federation, and we give you the link for that too. And I think that's okay. So I'm being hurried along here, which is very fair. But so don't feel afraid of that. It's perfectly legal and possible. The Calace family have given access to all of their works by Raffaele Calace, and you can get them through the Italian Federation if you have difficulty at all. Okay, so here we've got Beethoven, and we've got Armin Kaufmann, most amazing pieces now. So it's getting very, very enriched, I would say, the repertoire. Going on to grade 7 and grade 8 very quickly. So grade 7, if we can just click on there, you'll see that we've got a movement from the Hummel Mandolin Concerto, a movement from the Vivaldi Mandolin Concerto, but you only have one page. There's only one page here because they're all pretty robust, big pieces. So on to grade 8, and then we'll be finished.
Sure.
So
coming up just a moment. There we are.
Okay, so lots of fantastic pieces here. My Takashi Oki, the Fantasia, is a very amazing solo piece. The Ruggieri is a solo piece, so that gives you a little bit of freedom from being accompanied. But you can see second piece down, Calace, the Piccola Gavotta. That's available at the Pan Verlag site. It's a nice edition. But you can also see further down, Raffaele Calace. Can you see the Papillon? Papillon dans le jardin.
Sorry, do I need to scroll down? Oh, yes, here we are. Yeah.
No, it's halfway down. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that one, you can see that's just what I was talking about if you missed it, because I've got a lot of internet problems this afternoon. But the Federazione Mandolinistica, that is the Italian Federation, you can very easily link to Collage. You just press on Collage and you can press on the list of works and you can download for free all of those with the blessing of the Collage family. And that's a very useful thing to know, because it has been in the past so difficult to get hold of Collage works. And yeah, so that's it really. That's really all those lovely pieces. So we've walked through the variety, we've walked through the accompaniment. I think we've actually covered all the different things that we need to think about. Yes.
Thank you very much, Frances. Thank you. I'm going to go straight on to Barbara's pre-recorded contribution about the technical exercises, but that was great. Thank you for walking us through all of that. And that there was just one quick thing that occurred to me as you were talking about the accompaniments, and that is the rule at MTB about accompaniments is that up to grade 4, if there is a piece which has an accompaniment published with it, then you can do it unaccompanied if you're unable to find an accompanist, or you're not able to make use of a backing track. From grade 5 and above, if it's published with an accompaniment, you have to perform it with the accompaniment. But the accompaniment can be pre-recorded, so it's all about convenience really and accessibility. But I just thought I'd just throw that in. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to share, and we're going to walk through the technical exercises level by level with Barbara.
Hello, everybody. Thanks, Hugh, for inviting me along. And in developing the technical exercises, we looked at the different approaches in which different mandolin players learn to play the mandolin. So you have some people who start with scales and learn pieces like the melodic approach. Other people learn mandolin first by using chords, and others maybe start using arpeggio techniques. So it was very important in developing the technical exercises and the lists of pieces to give access to all players, so everybody would find themselves somewhere in this. Maybe Hugh wants to share our
Sure.
first.
I'll share a screen now, Barbara. Just a moment.
So that's the introductory grade we're looking at, and if you look at it, you will see the player is only asked to use downstrokes, and it is a very limited range of notes and a very limited range of rhythms. And the same rhythms and notes are also reflected in the scales later on. So there's a connection between scales, pieces, and technical exercises. If we go on to the next grade, that's the one.
Just a moment. That's the higher, yes.
So we'll see that now the player is extending their range of technical possibilities. So we have rests, and it's open to the player how they're going to do the rest, whether it's dampening the strings with the right hand or with the left hand. And a range of dynamics, simple dynamics, and very simple chords. So just gradually, the players getting introduced to different playing techniques. You have single strings or pairs of strings, and you then are asked to also play chords. And that will develop then in the next grade. Thank you very much, Hugh. You see that now the players also asked to play alternate stroke, and they can choose. There are 2 different types of alternate stroke. One is 2 strings on the upstroke, and one is 1 string on the upstroke. So they can choose which one they want to use. And our simple chords from the previous grade have now developed into simple arpeggio techniques. So no matter which way the player initially started the grades, they now get introduced to various different technical things in order to be able to play all the higher grade pieces later on. So if you get to grade 6, 7, 8, you will need all these techniques like tremolo, chords, position playing. And so very gradually, the player learns different skills and is tested on different skills. You want to move on, Hugh?
Thank you very much, Barbara. Yeah. Do you want to go to grade 2?
Yep. At the bottom one, the exercise 3, Hugh, if you scroll down.
Let me scroll down just a little bit. Yeah, there you go.
So you see that we had very simple arpeggio techniques. Some might know that as arpeggio technique number 6. And now it's the same arpeggio technique, but started at a different point. So again, it's a little bit more complex for the player, but using only very simple notes. The idea of the technique exercises is that each exercise really has a very strong focus on one technical aspect. So it doesn't use a lot of different notes, a lot of complicated rhythms, but stays very focused on a certain technique. So for example, if you look at exercise number 2, you will see the controlled alternate stroke really is the idea. So you have downstroke on the dotted crotchet, you have to wait and then continue with an upstroke. So instead of just having straight alternate stroke, now the player has to be able to control the alternate stroke, which then will lead the next logical step afterwards is to play triplet stroke. So you have down, up, down, things like that, where the alternate stroke gets a little more irregular and controlled.
Okay, shall I go on to grade 3? There we are. There's some triplets.
That's exactly what I just mentioned. So yeah, instead of having straight alternate stroke in some ways, we are now having to play in exercise 1. If you could point to that, the first bar, exercise 1,
yeah.
You see that you have down, up, down, which is, of course, the next step in your technical development as a player. And we're also getting introduced to position changes, again, in the second exercise. Very simple rhythms, very repetitive. So in order for the player to be able to focus on that technical aspect. Let's jump a few of the grades higher. Let's jump to grade 5, Hugh. If you can remember that far back to our introductory grade, we had very simple notes, very simple rhythms. Over the grades, the player learned alternate stroke, irregular alternate stroke, fast alternate stroke. The next step is tremolo. So again, we have simple notes, simple dynamics, and short phrasing for tremolo. Our arpeggio techniques developed more and more complex chords and more complex arpeggio techniques. You'll see that in this one, that is, instead of being very repetitive, the same kind of pattern, the right hand control is quite advanced. But again, very simple chords, so the player can just focus on the right hand difficulty. Shall we jump 2 up?
There's grade 6 technical exercises.
We have now, you see that grade 6 and grade 5, we had straight tremolo little things. In my view, tremolo on one string is much simpler. But
now we're crossing, aren't we?
The moment you have to cross strings in tremolo, that comes as a next step in learning. And that's what's exactly happening in this grade. You see that, for example, if you could point to bar 3 and 4, please. So you see that the player has to change strings twice.
Yes.
And that's a big step up. The steps up in terms of technical development at the start of the syllabus are very, very small. And it really accelerates towards the end of the syllabus. Because at the end of the syllabus, we want to get to pieces like Piccola Gavotta, where you have complex tremolo, duo style tremolo. So I start tremolo grade 4, 5, and it really accelerates.
Good. Do we have some examples of, sorry to interrupt, Barbara, do we have some examples of duo style? I think we do.
Yeah, so we just go up.
I'll go to 7. I can't remember where they all are.
So here we have very simple duo style, where you play for example, if you look at the very first bar, you have downstroke, you play G and the D at the same time, but you continue to tremolo the D. You don't tremolo the G all the time. And so it's downstroke on the G, let the G ring on, tremolo the top melody. But it teaches that kind of aspect of playing two strings at a time and keeping bottom notes, bass notes going. If you want to go to grade 8, and we'll look at the tremolo in grade 8. Yeah.
There we
So
are.
this is another step where you keep the top notes going, the top melodies tremoloed, and you have to then pluck the chords at the bottom, but you have to fret the chords at the same time. In the previous grades, you just had open strings in the bass, and now you have to fret the bottom chords. So you tremolo and then, yeah, play the bottom and keep them going at the right time.
Thank you very much, Barbara. Hope everybody found that useful. I know that's an awful lot to absorb. Do please remember that almost everything that we've said relating to the exams themselves is on the website, and all of the information about the music that you have to play, all of the things we've been displaying on screen, you can very, very easily display for yourself at home. Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody. And I think we will end this meeting now, and hopefully everybody will go away inspired to take an exam or get a pupil to take an exam. I'm looking forward to the first day I get a mandolin exam in my list of exams to mark. Thank you very much, everybody, and bye-bye.